2, Chapter 2, Your Contribution. The average man does not know what to do with his life, yet wants another one which will last forever. Anatole France. Principle: your body of work should reflect what's important to you. How much of your day do you spend doing work that you will be proud of later? In his commencement address to the Stanford University class of 2005, the late Apple co-founder and CEO Steve Jobs exhorted graduates with this: I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whether the question has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. He continued, remembering that I will be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectation, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already you are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. The most common response that I've encountered when sharing these words with others is an immediate yes, followed by a numb look of now what? The notion of blazing a path into the unknown is exciting, but it can also lead to a kind of purpose paralysis, fear of getting it wrong, or worse, frustration when the daily grind of work doesn't seem to reward your pursuit of those flashes of inspiration. It seems like fine advice for someone with no obligation, limitation, or baggage, but not for people living in the real world with grown-up responsibilities such as family and a mortgage. However, engaging in a deeply gratifying work does not require you to check out of life. Pack your bags and head off on pilgrimage to India. It simply requires consistent, focused efforts to cultivate your instinct and skills and make measured progress on your goals. Brilliant work is forgot by those who consistently approach their days with urgency and diligence. Urgency means leveraging your finite resources, focus, assets, time, and energy in a meaningful and productive way. Diligence means sharpening your skills and conducting your urgent diligence. You will pour, for, pour all of who you are into your days, and subsequently you will find that the unique value you bring to the world comes more clearly into focus. Just having a job is in many cases a luxury in today's economic climate. The nature of the work and the degree in which it fulfills a desire to engage in something meaningful is not of secondary concern for many, and understandably so. You might be asking yourself, isn't it selfish to think about things like personal fulfillment and being in your sweet spot when there are so many people scrambling just to find an employment? Absolutely not. The great problems we see in the world today will not be solved by people functioning at half capacity, cranking out work They don't care about in order to buy more things that will eventually rust or not. This problem will be solved by people who have tapped into their deeper aptitude and who are pouring themselves fully into work that is meaningful to them and valuable to others. Unfortunately, despite the often expressed desire to engage in great work, it seems that many people already sense that they are operating at less than their full ability. A 2012 study sponsored by Adobe and conducted by research firm Strategy One interviewed 5,000 adults, 1,000 each from the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Japan about their perceptions of creativity and engagement. The study revealed that while there is an increasing expectations across all sectors for both creativity and productivity in many workplaces, creativity is frequently subverted due to the increasing pressure to get work done. Globally, only 1 in 4 people reported that they feel they are living up to their creative potential. What this sampling reveals is that when we have to choose between doing work we're proud of and just getting the job done, many of us feel compelled to do the latter. We know there's always more just work just over the horizon, ready to wash over us like a tsunami. We have to settle for that, for what's practical, over pursuing for tomorrow. But over time, approaching work this way cor- corrodes our sense of purpose and our will to excel. We end up with far too many inexecuted ideas kicking around the back of our minds, and we eventually feel overwhelmed and stuck. We know that we're capable of more. The truth is there's no deep dark secret to unleashing your best work and finding your sweet spot. Through not easy, it begins with the decision to build practices that help you scan your life for areas where you might be growing stagnant and to help you put more of you of who you are into your work. Your legacy is built one decision at a time. Your body of work. When you're gone, your work will stand as the single biggest testament to who you are, who you were, and what you believed. By your work, I don't just mean your occupation, but any way in which you contribute value to the world using your available resources. This, of course, includes every task you do and project you engage in, but also every time you encourage someone else to or contribute to a relationship, every instance in which you make an effort to grow your skills or develop your mind, or every time you go to extra mile even though you are exhausted. Your body of work comprises the sum total of where you would choose to place your limited focus, assets, time, and energy. For the purpose of this book, I will define work as any instance where you make an effort to create value where it didn't previously exist. Naturally, your worth as a person transcends the value you create, but your work is the most visible experience of your priorities as you consider your current body of work and the sum of the value you've created. It is reflective of what you truly care about. Forget about your title, pay grade, or how the world would rate your relative success. or failures compared with what's considered normal. I found that the way I found that the only way to effectively gauge my work is to answer the question, can I lay my head down tonight satisfied with the work I did today? This exact question is posted prominently on my computer monitor, where I see it daily. I wrote it in a moment of frustration about a year and a half ago, when I was at the end of a long session, having just published my first book and wrapped up an extended period of travel. I found myself in a strange land, having just achieved a lifelong goal, but facing the uncertainty on the other side for so long. My energy has been devoted to the pressures of doing my regular work, while writing and launching the book in every spare moment, but like a rubber band stretched beyond its electricity, I simply couldn't return to normal. While I was getting a lot of work done, I still had a business to run. After all, without the singular focus and clarity that the book launch brought, I felt like I was pushing a wall forward but making little meaningful progress. Worse, my family began to feel the effects too. When I was struggling to make meaningful progress at the office, the lack of traction infiltrated my home in the form of short temper, emotional retreat, and lack of following thoughts through on follow through on important family matters. Empty space wants to be filled, and where there is an absence of purposeful activities and meaningful progress, any activity that brings the ping of immediate productivity will fill the void. With a lack of clear purpose to drive your work, efficiency often supplants effectiveness, and it's possible to move ever faster without any sense of direction, pointless efficiency. Perfectly describe my state during my post book launch haze. I was working hard and getting a lot done, but I felt as though I wasn't really checking the most important items off my list, let alone questioning myself about what should be on the list instead of busy work. A bit ironically, it's the same position I would help countless others escape. Yet here I was slipping on the same patch of ice I would seen 1,000 times. Even small amounts of success can be a harbinger of complacency, or worse, paralysis, because every milestone you reach ushers is in a new uncertainty. Where to now? What are the next logical steps? Do this work still matter, or is it time to change course? Because we are biologically hardwired to form habits around rewarding activities. When we accomplish a goal or taste the sweet fruit of success, it's tempting to keep pushing the same levers over and over again. However, this approach is often a fast track to mediocrity. The key to a long-term success is a willingness to disturb your own comfort for the sake of continued growth. To that end, how you choose to stare down uncertainty is often the determinant of success or failure. You can either operate by design, meaning that you put specific measures in place to keep you energized, self-aware, and operating at full capacity, or you operate by default, doing what seems comfortable or easy in the moment until your next steps become more clear. And they won't. In the scenario described above, I was falling prey to one of the most common pitfalls of creative work. In order to feel that I was making progress, I was throwing myself deeply into execution without considering how I was approaching my work, whether I was even headed in the right direction, and if I was using the proper tools. I was leveraging one kind of work but ignoring the other two altogether. The three kinds of work. Work is core to the human experience. We seem to be wired to derive a sense of purpose from adding the smallest amount of value through our efforts. In his classic book, Working, in which he gives first-hand account of the lifestyle of dozens of workers in diverse occupations, Turco wrote, "In all instances, there is felt more than a slight ache. All in instance, there dangled the impertinent question, ought not there be an increment, earned through not yet received from one's daily work, an acknowledgment of man's being? Work is reinforcement of that sense of being, of our sense of belonging, and the way to discover ourselves as we interact with the world around us. Even though work sometimes feels like one massive melded blend of tasks, conversations, and meetings, it can be It can be parsed into three different forms: mapping, making, and mashing. To truly unleash your full capacity and to ultimately find your sweet spot of contribution, you must engage in all three. Mapping is fairly straightforward. It's planning, plotting your objectives, and setting priorities. It's the work before the work that helps you ensure you're spending your focus, time, and energy in the right places. You often map instinctually, as when you make a list of tasks to accomplish or block off time on the calendar. Sometimes mapping is also done in collaboration with others, such as in strategy meeting or planning sessions. However, not all the mapping you need to do is instinctual and obvious. It's not all about critical paths and Gantt charts. Some mapping deals with less tangible aspects of work, such as the values that drive you, or your sense of why you do what you do. When you fail to account when you fail to account for these in your mapping, it's easy to lose your focus and quickly get off course. You can wind up making really great progress in the wrong direction. In later chapters, you will learn how ignoring these less obvious form of mapping can cause you to get astray, and some practices you can implement to keep you and your desired course. Making is actually doing the work. It's creating value of any kind, including exclusive tasks, making sales calls, designing, writing, engaging with your direct reports, and tackling your objectives. Making is what typically comes to mind when you think of work because it is what you're doing when you deliver the most tangible value. You can strategize all you want, but in the end, you have to do something about your plans. While it's often difficult to measure in the moment how effectively your plan or strategize mapping, you can count at the end of the day how many tasks you checked off a list, how many words you wrote, or how many calls you made. As a result, it is easy to gravitate towards making the expenses of the other two kinds of work because you're able to point at something and say, I did that. As mentioned above, this can result in making quick but ultimately useless progress.